Okay, let's go through the mean and max. The very first program, we said we're going to call the file, we pass mean and max parameter, right? So the very first thing is we got to make sure those parameters are exist in the URL, right? So how would you make sure the parameters are exist in the URL? What do I have to do? How do you get the parameters from the URL? What variable do you use to get the value of the mean and max? Get, right? So in order to make this organized, I would just create a variable and I use ternary operator to see if the parameter is passed to this script or not. If it is, I'm going to use it. Otherwise, I would just assign a default value. So in this case, I use is set get min. If this is set, if it's passed, simply I will use the value. Otherwise, I will assign a default value of, let's say, 1. I'm going to do that for the max as well. So the only thing I do is I just change min to max. And I'm ready to go. Okay. Now that I have the mean and max, I just simply have to write a loop, right? So for me, it's going to be a for loop. I know a for loop has 3 parts: initialization, condition, and increment or decrement. There are many different ways of doing this. I can create a variable called I and make it equal mean. That's where I have to start the process, right? And I can simply go and say while I is less than or equal, let's say, max, go ahead and do this loop. And simply I have to increment the value of I to get into max. Next, I just go ahead and echo I. Does that make sense? So if I run this right now, it should actually print this for me. Let me just put some new line so we can see each number in an individual line. Here you go. So simply I can modify this to whatever I need to print that from the minimum to maximum value, right? Obviously, one thing is you have to, if you really want to make sure everything is okay, you got to make sure the mean is smaller than max, right? That's another checking that you have to do. But as far as the code goes, I can simply generate a dynamic value between the mean and max. Did you all do it the same way, or did you do it differently? Anybody done this differently? Almost same? Okay. What I want you to do is this. I want you to add another PHP statement to this code to make any number that is divisible by 3 to have an underline. So if it's 3, I want you to have underline. If it's 6, I want you to have underline, and then print it to the screen. Otherwise, just print the number as is. How do you add underline? How do you add underline? What tag of HTML do you use? U tag, right? So whenever you realize the value of I is divisible by 3, you got to print U and put the number in between. Otherwise, you just print the number. Does that make sense? Can we do it? Let's try. What do you use to see if a number is divisible by another number? What operator? Mod operator, right? So I'm saying if I mod 3 is equal 0. If it doesn't have any remainder, that is where I have to print the U tag, right? Otherwise, I just have to print the number. So in this case, in the else, I print just the number. And if it matches the condition, simply print U tag. So if I go back here and do this 1 to 20, simply you see 3 is underlined, 6 is underlined, and so on. Any number that is divisible by 3. Let me know if there is any part you don't understand. Let me know if you want me to slow down, repeat again, explain again. So don't let me go if you don't understand it. For me to do the reverse version, I just simply copy this code, paste it right after this. I'm going to echo a horizontal ruler so we can see both sides. So now, I want to start from the big number, go to the lower number, right? So what should I do? Instead of mean, I have to make I is equal max, right? So while I is what? While I is greater than or equal mean, right? Then I will simply make I minus minus because I put the bigger number into I. So then I check. Hopefully it should work. Let's try. I'll make this one a smaller number so we can see it. Here you go. 126, 621, right? So I just simply did the reverse and you can see the result. Look at the code. Let me know if you need any explanation for any part of this code. It's very, very important for you to understand this. So here, f2.php. What I want to do is, with this, I want to be able to pass the rows, number of rows, let's say 5. And I want to be able to pass the column number. So which is equal, let's say, 5 as well. As soon as I hit enter, it has to draw a table with 5 rows, each row containing 5 columns. Let's see how we do that. Well, since I have this code here, I can simply change this to rows to get the value of rows, right? From the parameter list. Rows. And the other one, I just do it columns. Okay. A table consists of row and columns, guys, right? A table consists of rows and columns. So in order to print a table or to create a table, what is the very first tag you use? In order to create a table, what tag do you use? Table tag, right? Table tag is the container. A table tag can contain many what? Many rows, right? So second, I have to print the rows. I can have one to many rows. Whenever I say one to many, it means you need a loop to repeat the same process, right? In each row, you can have one to many columns. So you need another loop to create the column. You need 2 loops to be able to print the table. Now, sometimes you just keep printing the table tag while you're doing the PHP inside the loop. Sometimes you save it into a variable and then you print this after. That's what I'm going to do. I create a variable. I append the trtd tag to that variable, and at the end I will print the table. Okay? Let's do it together. So I will go ahead and create a variable called table equal empty string. I need the very first loop. So I call it r is equal 0, represent 1 row. And while r is less than rows, number of rows, I will continue with this loop. And then I increment the value of r, right? The very first loop, as I said, it just prints the tr. So what I have to do is, I just have to create tr and then close tr. Sorry. Well, since I have a variable to hold these things, I can say table dot equal. What is dot equal? Dot equal, what does it mean dot equal? Append to the end of the current value, right? So what I'm going to do is table dot equal tr. Right in between these 2 tags, I have to create the columns. Is that correct? You always put the td tag open close between the tr. So this is where I need the other loop. I will go for c is equal 0. and then while C is less than columns, I increment the value of C. You got to pay attention to this. Every time I hit the inner loop, it will start from 0 because each row will have the same number of columns, right? So I start with the first column, second column, until whatever is the number of column is reached in the loop. So what should I do now? I just have to append the TD tag. So I'll go TD open, ampersand non-breaking space, and I close the TD tag, right? Inside this loop, depends as how many columns you set, or just keep appending TD open close to the string, right? When the loop is finished, when this loop is finished, I just close the TR. So with the first run of the first loop, I create the first row with whatever columns you set, number of columns. Then I repeat this thing until I get to the max number of rows, whatever number you pass to me, right? Okay. If I go right now here, let me show you this in a different way. I will comment the TD. I'll go to the page, refresh this, view page source, right? Let me just print the table right after this. Print table variable, right? If I refresh this, you will see the number of rows are printed already with the very first loop. So if I go here and say create 2 rows, see, it just creates 2 rows because it goes through the very first loop and loop that many times and produce TR open, TR close. Is that understood? Is there any problem up to now? Okay. Now if I go inside this, the other tag or other loop simply generates the TD tag for me, right? Look, start from 0 and go up to as many as columns the user passed to this script. Look at the source code. I just had the TR, I uncommented the for loop, second for loop, now I get the TD tag as well, right? So I created the TR, I created the TD tag. What is missing from all code here? I need the main container, the table tag, right? So where can I add this table tag? It should not be inside the loop because I cannot do table, right? It should be somewhere outside the table. I can either go and append it right here, like this. So I'll print table, concatenate the content of table variable, and I close the table, right? Does that make sense? So I open the table tag, I concatenate whatever I have in the table variable, and I close the table. Or you could simply open the table right here instead of an empty string. So if I go here right now, go back here, the table tag is added. Look at this. And what is wrong here? What is it? Do you guys see any problem here? I see the table. No, it should be okay. Do you guys see any problem? How come as it should be HTML issue? Otherwise, I would not be able to see it here. Table tag TRTD. What is it? No, it doesn't show anything. Oh yeah. Oh my God, Mazhar. Here you go. You're right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we need a border tag here, right? Border equal 1. Let me remove this. Here you go. Now I can simply go here and say, I want 15 rows, each row 5 columns. Each row 25 columns, right? I create a dynamic table now. So the whole idea was to write one script to be able to dynamically create a table with any size we want, right? Let's look at the code one more time. We got the rows and columns. We have the table variable to hold the tags, the TRTD tags. With the first loop, I print the TR open, TR close before the end of the loop. With the inner loop, I just print number of columns I receive from the parameter list. At the end, I add the table and I close the table tag, and simply the result will be this. Any question? Is there any part you want me to explain?